this is the lamest leadership bid or rebellion or revolt or whatever you want to call it since the dying days of Gordon Brown's premiership. Now, you'll remember that too, John. We had all sorts of ministers resigning in a very kind of uncoordinated and cack-handed way.
Yeah.
There was a point where I think it was Patricia Hewitt and Jeff Hoon both sort of came out resigning and calling for Gordon Brown to go, and not many people followed them over the top. There were a couple of other rebellions against Gordon Brown which were a bit better than that one, but I think the Hoon one was particularly unsuccessful, unless I've misremembered it. I mean, what we've got at the moment is we've got Sir Simon Clarke, who's got a knighthood and is venerated as a former cabinet minister, but he was only cabinet minister from memory for a couple of months. That was in those days in late 2022 where we had a lot of people who were cabinet ministers for a month or two, whether they were replacing the original cabinet ministers who resigned to bring down Boris Johnson, or whether it was the ones who served under Liz Truss and only lasted for 6 weeks. There are an awful lot of former cabinet ministers out there. If one of them goes over the top against Rishi Sunak and no one goes with him, that ought to be quite embarrassing. I need to caveat this with the idea that maybe people will get their act together in the coming days and it will look a bit less lame. But, I think an awful lot of people in the Tory party, MPs, even senior people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who are sort of senior right-wingers who don't like Rishi Sunak's politics, even they know that it would be kind of ridiculous to have yet another prime minister when we've had 3 in whatever it was, 18 months.
Sure.
And so the idea of a 25-year-old or 26-year-old advisor in number 10 quitting is a matter of national significance or salience seems to me kind of absurd.
Let me just for the sake of argument here, just put it to you. We remember those plots that failed against Gordon Brown in the dying days of his premiership, and they did fail, and Gordon Brown soldiered on. But I think the impression of it all was that there were people who were out to get Gordon Brown, that he had enemies around him, his premiership was in trouble. And for a Prime Minister who's pretty unpopular, and you could say Rishi Sunak's got problems with public opinion, this kind of rubs salt in that wound.
Yeah, I mean, look, what is definitely true is that for the general public, this makes Rishi Sunak look weaker. What we've also had in recent days is we've had a rebellion against his Rwanda policy by his own MPs. We've had a poll funded by anonymous Tory donors suggesting that he's leading his party to electoral wipeout. And we've got MPs fighting like cats in a sack. So all of this adds up to a sort of impression that Rishi Sunak doesn't have a grip, that he's losing control, that we're heading for a general election where he's going to lose. So I'm not saying any of it is good for him. Of course, it's pretty bad for him. I just don't get any feeling of momentum with this. And some of these polls suggesting that a different prime minister would do much better. People have pointed out the methodology, and at least one of them is a little bit suspect. I think in one of these polls, people were basically asked, if the Tory party was to replace Rishi Sunak with someone who solved everything, would you prefer that? And then unsurprisingly, they said yes.
Sure, yeah. Well, these are all fair points, which doesn't leave Rishi Sunak, however, in a fantastically comfortable or happy position. But great to get your thoughts, Jim. Jim Pickard at the Financial Times.